All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone Ruel. Peace, blessings, salutations to the for elect that is out there pushing, laboring, believing, and listening on to this truth. All right, with all sincerity. All right, may the blessing lecture be upon your houses. All right, the time and topic of this lesson is going to be recompense. All right, and right here I have the definition for the word recompense from the Oxford Languages, right? Quick Google search. All right, and it reads make amends to someone for loss or harm suffered, compensation or reward given for loss or harm suffered or effort made. All right, and some of the synonyms here is compensation, repay, restitution. I believe there was another one in here I was looking for. Reparations. There we go. Right. And when we look at the track record of these devils, right, Esau, Edom, right, they're going to have to pay, right, for all that wickedness and the atrocities that they have done unto the children of Yasharallah, right, throughout the four corners of the world, right. These devils is truly a madman running rampant on the planet Earth right now, man. All right, and they're gonna have to pay for all the wickedness that they have done to us, man. There is so much wickedness that they have done, on the planet Earth, especially to the children of Yasharallah. A lot of it is known, a lot of it isn't known, man. Right? Best believe, right? When you go into the history of, when we were going through the hardcore bondage in this place, man. All right, and even going into the time of, that Jim Crow era, the segregation era and so forth, man. There was a lot of wickedness that they was doing, right, behind the scenes that didn't even come to light, man. There's a lot of stuff that they have buried, man, right, that just hasn't come out. Okay, but I got this here, right, and I did another quick Google search, right, AI overview, man. And then just searched in the atrocities of slavery in America, right? And right here it says American slavery was an atrocity built on brutal dehumanization involving forced labor, systemic violence, whipping, torture, killing, family separation, selling children from their mothers, sexual abuse, and rape, denial of basic rights, psychological torture, and forced breeding, all to enrich slaveholders and maintain white supremacy, creating deep-seated racial trauma and equality that persists today, right? And that's just the tip of the iceberg, man, right? Because if they really go more into detail with the physical violence, right? They were doing all types of wicked things, man. Right? They were, feeding Jake babies to gators, right? They were castrating the men, right? They were doing buck breaking, man. They were doing all types of wicked things, man. This just, just pretty much like a tip of the iceberg, right? It just says whippings, beatings, brandings, torture, and murder, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. But when you really, break it down and go, deeper into it, man, hey, it was doing a lot of wicked things, man, right? And a lot of the times they had, whips, not just any normal whip, right? Of course, they were using normal whips, but they had whips. Some whips even had, a metal, tied to the front of it, right? Like a whip that you would use on like on animals, all right? Torture, next level torture, man. Right? This is the wicked that we are speaking of, man. Right? And they are going to have to pay for this, man. Right? We will get our recompense, man. Right? The Lord is gonna get that vengeance, man. Right? It's coming. Right? That's why you got this whole thing right now, going on. You see on social media, oh, white guilt, this, that, and the third. All right, because these devils have been exposed, man. Right? They try to brush it off as if, oh, that was, our ancestors. That was, my great grandfather. That has nothing to do with me. Well, newsflash, all right, newsflash, right? you coming back in the reincarnation, man. Right? Best believe a lot of those slave owners, a lot of those overseers, a lot of those wicked ass Edomites that was doing all types of atrocities to Jake is back here again today in the flesh, man. Right? They back here again. They reincarnate back again. All right? But that'd be one of the, quick little scapegoat routes to be like, nah, it wasn't me. You know? But it really is. And let me get this too, man. Right? And Isaiah the 14th chapter verse 21. It reads, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities, right? And ultimately that's the judgment that's going to come. All right. Prepare slaughter for their children, man. Right? Because they love to say, hey, nah, it wasn't us. No, we didn't do it. It was my great grandfather. It was my great 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 grandfather. Right? But when you come down having that proper understanding of the scriptures and understand, reincarnation, understand that, the spirits come back, then you got that eyesight to see that, hey, you are that individual coming back again in the reincarnation. Because that's why we see a lot of these people, those horns come out once they start getting exposed, man. Right? Those spirits get riled up when we be on the highways and hedges and making lessons such as this, man, because they're getting exposed, man. Right? That demon inside of them is getting riled up. Let me get this too, man. Another point I wanted to hit on this. Right? The psychological torture. Right? It says the constant threat of violence, the breaking of cultural identity, and forced submission created profound trauma, right? And a lot of Jake, right? Yet they know they're still suffering to this day from, what's the word for it? I believe it's called hereditary trauma, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where it could be a trauma that, you didn't experience in this life, but, either, a relative or down the line or even in the past life, you could have experienced a certain type of, psychological torture and trauma that, in this current time right now, it's affecting you, right? That's why you got some Jake that's, scared of water, right? Because they could have, drowned on them slave ships. They could have, got, tortured and drowned, in some water by these devils. You got some Jake that's, fearful of fucking gators. Shit, they could have been gator bait. All different type of things, man. In other terms, you can look at like PTSD. All right. You know, because these devils, real life, real deal, did a lot of wickedness, man. Did a lot of damage unto Jake, man. You can see it in our people to this day, man. And it's such a stereotype with Jake that they be like, oh, Jake can't swim. That's a stereotype. But when you really go into it and go back to it, you see, hey, that shit stems back from Jake being in hardcore bondage, man. Even to this day, when you see Jake having that Stockholm syndrome, right, loving their oppressors, loving Esau, eat them so much, man, right? Look at that. That even could stem back to hardcore bondage, man. Right, because a lot of Jake that was in hardcore bondage, man. If they were, house slaves or, what they called them, man. I forgot what they called him, like the guy from Django, man. Samuel L. Jackson played him. Basically like the head butler, the head slave Jake over there. They got that Stockholm syndrome where they truly have some type of care or for their oppressors, man. Right? Even going down to this next point, this last bullet point right here, it says controlling breeding. Right, it says slave owners sometimes force enslaved people into breeding to increase their stock, treating humans like livestock, man. And a lot of things we don't even talk about, but they had certain plantations, right? And you can search yourself for yourself. Don't even take my word for it. Do the research, like our apostles say, man. But they had certain plantations, right, that was strictly designed and created specifically for breeding, man. Right? There would be no cotton there, right? All they doing is breeding there. They're breeding Jake there, man. Right? They would put Jake in a dark room and just throw a woman in there, and tell that Jake to pop her, man. And it could be anybody. And a lot of times it would be incest, man. You know, they'll put Jacob in their room with their mothers, with their grandmothers, with their sisters. They wouldn't even know, man. All right, that goes to show you the extent of the wickedness of Esau, Edom, man. And a lot of these type of things aren't even spoken about. A lot of these things they try to hide, keep away, bury. But that is the true fact of the matter. All right. So it was very high levels of wickedness that Esau, Edom was doing unto Jacob, man. So think about it, man. These are the things that we know, right? From doing research, from looking into it. So imagine the next level, of high level of wickedness that they were doing that's hasn't even been, exposed or came out yet, man. All right. But yet, our people out here want to, befriend these devils, want to try to trust these devils, be buddy buddy with these devils, man. Like the scripture says, never trust thine enemy. Look at their track record, man. Look what they have done to the planet Earth. Look what they have done to the children of Yasharallah, right? But that vengeance is coming, man. They're going to have to pay for all that. All right. I'm going to grab this in Exodus 21:16. It reads, and he that stealeth the man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. And that's exactly what they done it to the nation of Yasharallah. They stole us. They sold us, for slaves, right? They done all type of wickedness to us, right? They had us, basically, on those auction blocks, right? That's even if you're going back to Black Friday where that came from, right? So they gonna have to pay for that, man, right? And I want to get this too, and in Isaiah 14:2, right? It reads, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors, right? So they had us in hardcore bondage, right? These devils had us in hardcore bondage, right? So what's going to happen is now these heathen nations, right? Because all heathen nations had a hand, right, a part, right, in our captivity, right? When you look at someone do a crime, right, you could have just been a getaway driver, and the person, other people in the car came out and actually did the crime, you still catch, the same amount of, time or sentencing, right? Or I guess you could say the what they call it, charge, right? Because it would be like you were an accomplice to the crime. So these other heathen nations were an accomplice to, the hardcore bondage that happened to the nation of Yasharallah. So therefore, all these heathen nations are going to go into a hardcore bondage, man. They're going to go into captivity. That's balance. That's justice, right? That's true reparations, right? They're going to go into that hardcore bondage for 1,000 years, right? And then after after the after the after the 1,000 years of that hardcore bondage, right? The nation of Edom, pursuant to the book of Obadiah, right? They're gonna be, completely, destroyed, right? And as far as these other heathen nations, right, they're gonna go back to their land, but they're gonna be under, subject to us, man. Right? We're gonna be ruling over them, right? But that is justice, man. That's balance. Okay. We get this too. This is Numbers, the 35th chapter, verse 33. It reads, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Right? So right now, right, we are walking on, blood right now, ultimately, man. Because this land has been defiled by the blood, sweat, and tears of the nation of Yasharallah, man. Right? And the scripture says this land cannot be cleansed, of the blood except by the blood of them that shed it, right? So that's, that eye for an eye, man. You know, that's true justice. That's true reparations. That's that, true recompense, that we are looking forward to, man. Whether you believe it or not, whether you think it's true or not, this is the fact of the matter. This is what's going to happen. This is what's written. The Lord is not one to lie. All right. But hey, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying to the elect of Israel. I'm going to close it out with that. I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone Well. Peace, blessings, salutations to those for elect that is out there pushing, laboring, believing, and listening on to His truth with our sincerity. Until next time, Shalom, and a ball, Kwame Yasharallah, Shalom.